When I was in high school, they had a movie called JFK. Oliver Stone did it. Kevin Costner was in it. Pretty solid movie, but it was all about the conspiracy theory around the assassination of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy back in 1963. And that movie very much stood out to me as they were saying this is a conspiracy. And there was not just one shooter on this. And it is very possible that our own government, the CIA, was involved with taking out an American president, which at that point, wow. Could you imagine what happens in this country if that's the case?
Mind blown.
Mind blown. Now, they've always talked about releasing more of these files that were compiled during the investigation into the assassination on JFK. But then when they would release them, a lot of times they'd be redacted, meaning that they would cross out in black marker that you couldn't read through what was going on with names or details. They said to protect national security. Well, now they had released 80,000 pages of JFK assassination documents, unredacted, revealing new details. And there was about 4,400 pages that people were really paying attention to. And there's still going to be new stuff coming out, but because of AI, you can really just kind of feed those documents right in and be like, hey, what's new? And it can spit it right out.
Give me the synopsis of the new stuff only, please.
Absolutely. That's what I'm going to do. Now, a couple of things, and the one thing they had done was pinned it as Lee Harvey Oswald. He was the solo shooter from the book depository that was in Dallas. Would have been a pretty good shot. And one thing that came out and confirmed that the CIA had been tracking him since like 1960, but everyone that had worked with him, including, for instance, some Russians, said that he was a terrible shot. He was not good with a rifle.
Universally, he was known to be a horrible shooter.
Known to be a horrible shooter. So either he just got super lucky that day, and somehow he figured out how to shoot, or there is something up with that.
So that's the first thing that you go, all right, that's an odd thing.
Well, it does go against and makes you question that he was the lone gunman on that day. Now, a couple things was his relationship with the Soviet Union at the time. So he sought a visa from Mexico City, met with some Cuban officials. He called a KGB officer about a, quote, job that they wanted him to do. We don't know what that job was. Was it to assassinate a president or something else? And while he was in Mexico City, the CIA supposedly lost track of him for 2 days. They don't know where he went or who he met with in that time. Now, there are a couple other things that are out there that are kind of inconsistent, like some autopsy notes that reveal an entry wound that is inconsistent with Oswald's rifle. That came out in the documents.
Ruh-roh.
Ruh-roh. So that means there was another gun, another bullet, somebody else took the shot. So that kind of, again, that's another thing that tears down the lone gunman theory.
And that's confirmed that definitely happened?
This is what's in the files.
This is an autopsy. So usually an autopsy is correct about how the death happened, the trajectory of the bullet, like, you know, they can tell if he was shot in the front of the head or the back of the head.
Yep.
They're pretty good with the autopsy stuff.
Yeah. And also some of the witness accounts we now have a better light on because of these JFK documents coming out. And some of the witness accounts are describing shots from the grassy knoll. And they even have acoustic analysis that suggested that there was a fourth shot that happened as well at President JFK.
Wow.
So these are all things that are really kind of shooting the official, pun intended, explanation out of the water here. Now, some of the failures that happened with government and law enforcement with the assassination of JFK, the FBI ignored a warning of a Dallas threat days before the assassination, and they say Secret Service lapses included ignoring a last-minute motorcade route change and a death threat tip-off. So they were getting warnings saying, hey, there's something going down. You might want to change things up. And they're just saying, okay, well, then we knew all this, and they expected that somebody was taking a shot at the president. Why didn't they do anything about it? They just said, nah, we're okay. We're just keep it business as usual.
Because they wanted the shot at the president, maybe.
Maybe. Now, a lot of people talked about the CIA, Cuba, and the Bay of Pigs that had gone on. And was there a connection to a motive as to why the CIA might want to take out JFK? Now, there are documents that have been released suggesting Cuban diplomats suspected JFK's death was CIA revenge for the failed Bay of Pigs invasion. The CIA had funneled $25,000 to an anti-Castro group that was linked to Lee Harvey Oswald. So that kind of brings him in. I think he probably was in on it in some way, but was he the only guy, or was he set up to look like the guy that took the shot, and then everybody else who was taking shots slipped away? Now, some of the cover-up stuff, there's a CIA agent who blamed the agency for JFK's murder, who later died in a suspicious suicide.
Uh-oh. Was he about to talk?
He suicided himself, and they've even documented that as saying, yeah, that didn't necessarily look like a suicide, and he was about to come forward with some information that was going to blow the doors off this.
Oh, boy.
J. Edgar Hoover urged swift public statements to shut down conspiracy theories, and he pushed the lone gunman. And he said, we got to get that out there, and we got to pin it on this Lee Harvey Oswald, because we got to move on, because there were a lot of things that looked very suspicious.
You didn't want him on your ass. You didn't want him looking at you.
Move along.
Yeah, and there's a couple of other interesting things. One of the things that if there was any headline to come out of the JFK files so far is that the person who took over for John Fitzgerald Kennedy as president, Lyndon B. Johnson, he was suspected by Soviet intelligence of a coup, that he was trying to get rid of JFK himself. So the Soviets thought that the VP is trying to take out the president.
But that's according to what the
Soviet intelligence. So
Yeah.
they knew that, and they said the Soviets think that we're trying to assassinate our president, and then it happened, and then Lyndon B. Johnson did take over the role. So there's nothing that is concrete that I've seen so far, but there is enough stuff that it really is going to make people question the lone gunman thing of it being Lee Harvey Oswald with the information I just went over.
What does the Kevin Ralston think?
I'm kind of back into, I think there's a conspiracy, baby.
Yesterday you were out,
Yeah.
you're back in now.
I'm back in again.
They got him.
Now, I don't know how you're going to get anything else from this. Maybe there's still something, because, again, this is preliminary, and this isn't a thorough investigation of the documents that were released. That's still being done today, and maybe something new will come out of it. But that's what we got so far. And for me, just hearing what I heard today, I was like, I don't know. It feels like we need to reopen an investigation and see what's going on, because I think we had our own government assassinate our president.
Next up, Area 51.
This is how we do. It's the KVJ Show.